Now seriously, who does this kind of damage to their tools? This didn't happen in just one or two hits after the handle broke off. This took a lot of work to do that much damage to the chisel. But the rest of the chisels look like they're still in pretty good shape. They still have potential to take a good sharp cutting edge. So I think it's time to go up to the shop, see if we can fix these. The chisel with the tang, all I want to do is clean up that mushroom bit of the tang, then add another inch, inch and a half to it so that it will stay in a handle. That one's going to be really simple to do. I'm not going to do any forge work on the blades themselves. I want to keep those cool so I don't do any damage to the pre-existing heat treat. I don't know what the steel on these chisels are. I don't know what the proper heat treat is. And this will save me a lot of experimentation. And I assume whoever made these chisels knew what they were doing and got it right. The socket chisel is going to need a replacement bit of socket. Trying to fix all that mushrooming where it's all splattered back like a cartoon shotgun barrel just simply isn't going to be practical, even if it is hypothetically possible. So I'm going to use a piece of tubing close to the right size, forge that down into a socket. Then I'll weld that on with a torch so I get a nice controlled weld. I find that a little bit easier than trying to MIG weld something like this. If you're good with a TIG torch, that'd probably be the way to go, but I prefer oxyacetylene for something like that. And like I said, I'm going to keep the blades cool so I can touch them throughout the entire process. I'm going to go through that same procedure of flattening the back, then refining the bevel for both chisels, and finally end up sharpening them. In reality, it took longer to do that than it did to do all the other work. The repairs on the metal for the tang and the socket, making the handles, was pretty quick and simple by comparison to just cleaning up the back, especially on this tang chisel. This one probably took 2 hours of flattening. I would have been better off to just go ahead and use the belt grinder on it, which certainly would have been an option and probably what I would have normally done, but I kind of wanted to see what it would take to do it by hand on the stones. The socket chisel, on the other hand, was in pretty good shape, and it didn't take anywhere near that much time. It probably only took about 20 minutes worth of time to clean up the back and refine the bevel. Now the handles, this handle I'm really happy with. I like the way it came out. This is Osage orange, by the way. Osage orange starts off a pretty brilliant yellow. You can already see that this one is starting to darken. But in the long run, it will turn this nice deep brown, and I think that's just gorgeous. It can be problematic. It tends to be a little bit brash. It wants to split and break easily when you're working it, especially if you're trying to turn it, which is one reason I go with the octagon handles in the Osage orange. But once it's all done, it is a good durable hard wood. It's just while you're cutting it that it tends to want to split. The handle on the socket chisel, it's the right idea, but I was having so much fun turning this with that big roughing gouge and the chips were flying off that I got way too carried away and I made it a little bit on the small side. So I'm probably going to replace this. Notice I'm holding this not by the handle, but by the socket of the chisel. The handles on socket chisels usually are not glued in place, and that means they can come back off. So if you're just holding this by the handle, you could drop this on your foot, which would be really bad if you're wearing shoes that aren't steel-toed or heavy enough to stop it. But you could also drop it on the concrete floor like I have in my basement workshop, and that wouldn't be very good for the tool. Some people will put a little bit of hairspray on here to make it sticky. I guess that probably works. And I suppose you could glue it in, but if you break the handle at some point, it's a lot harder to get the glued in bits of handle out of the socket than it is to just take a knife and trim off the glued in bits that are stuck to the tang of a tang chisel. There really isn't a problem, and modern epoxies will hold quite well in this situation. There's still going to be a little bit of refinement of the bevels and everything just to make sure they're cutting the way I want them to. But these are now usable tools, and I'm really glad I took the time to put them back in service instead of just letting them become scrap or sitting around collecting dust, which is kind of what they were doing. Hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next video.